Oh, good.
Okay. Welcome everyone tonight to Boulder Exo's 2024 first presentation. We're so excited to have you. And we're doing a little bit different format. Whoops. Let's see, there's a little echo there. We're doing a little bit of a different format. We're having Julia do an opening to get us all out of our busy week and get us all aligned in our heads and our hearts. And then Gar will be doing a catch up with what's
This
new
month in
in the
UFO news,
in the Cosmic Zoo here.
right?
And
Very
then
shortly.
and then we'll be doing our presentation. There'll be a Q&A afterwards. We are recording this so that if you do miss any part of it, that you'll be able to watch it again. So you'll get a link to that afterwards. So with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for supporting this effort. This is such an important time. We're so excited to be here with you. So with that, Julia, do you want to start? You're muted, so
Yeah,
okay, thank
I'm fine. Yeah. It's time to get centered before we listen to Cynthia with our whole being. So I'm going to start with the great invocation, followed by the great affirmation. The great invocation, 1935. And the great affirmation came through Findhorn in 1973. So it's the next step up in our dedication. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. From the heart of me, that is the heart of God, love streams forth to all my worlds, and I am one. From the light we share within the mind, God, love streams forth to all our worlds, and we are one. Men where flames the will of God, love streams forth to all and men. From the all in all, that is the life of God, love God's plan made real, and with God as our beloved, we are the plan on earth.
Thank you. That was beautiful. So now we're going to, Gar, do you want to sit here then to do it?
Oh, I can do it from right here.
Okay, okie doke. Thank you, Julia. So now we're gonna view back to here. And
Share
share
screen.
screen. Well, I went out with this. Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
okay. There. Oh, very good. Okay, guys, so this is the month in review. And we've had a lot of stuff happening in the UFO news. So let's go to the next slide. Perfect. Miami. Miami had 60 or more police cars at the mall. And there were pictures of something like a 10-foot tall alien walking along the outside of the mall. And there's a great deal of questions on whether this is real or not. But the police reported the next day that it was just a bunch of kids with sticks and firecrackers. And that wouldn't get the response of 60 police cars. On the other side of it, it would be Project Blue, Blue something.
Blue bean?
Blue Beam, thank you. Where they're trying to stir up everybody into fear about aliens. And that was a hologram is what I read. Don't know. Don't know anything about this. We never got anything from ground level. We only have these shots from the apartments across the freeway. So you guys get to decide whether you believe this or not. Next. Well, maybe next.
It's not working from there.
Get it, focus. Click on it. Technical difficulties.
There it goes.
Oh, very good. Okay. David Gresh has really been in the news lately as a UFO informant and one that's in charge of UFO what you call people that
Informers.
thank you. Well, more than that, when you inform on a company, you are a what's it called? At any rate,
Okay.
yeah, I just don't have the word in my head. Sorry about that, guys.
Whistleblower.
Yeah, thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Okay.
At any rate, he's been with the whistleblowers who have an actual place that you can go to now and talk about all these really classified UFO things. And so the House of Representatives is now getting a briefing on UFO information. And it's a start, but it's different than what it has been before. And Gresh has been saying, yes, indeed, we do have UFOs that we're trying to figure out how they work.
Back engineer.
Yeah, and back engineer. But we haven't been able to do it. Whereas there's a whole bunch of reports from other people that said, oh yeah, we've back engineered this stuff for years and years and decades even. So I think this is probably a setup for UFOs being bad guys. So we'll see. Okay, next slide. Okay, there is a remote viewing group called Farsight. And what they've done just recently, there was a group of 5 of them that got together and verified that there's a base on Mars that's joint human and ET. It's building advanced technologies and it's working with AI, but it's not on the bad side. It's on the good side. They're visionary and utopian. So that was really good news compared to the dark German versions. And I think that's probably it, isn't it?
Nope.
Oh, one more. David Adair. David Adair is going to come talk to us next month, but he was on Michael Sala's program with 4 parts. And had very interesting things to say about technology, about our government. He's just a genius. He has an IQ of about 300. And the stories he has are absolutely fascinating.
And
And we really
hysterical.
look forward to next month with him too. So there you have it, the news for the month.
There we go. End of slide, click exit. Okay. Okay,
Stop sharing. Right there.
thank you,
Perfect.
thank you, thank you.
Okay, we
Okay.
pass it over to our star.
Our star of the show is Cynthia. So we are so proud of all the work that Cynthia has done. And like
Getting a
many of
picture.
you, I am a big, big, big fan. This is one of her pieces that I have 2 of them. Amazing energy. I can't wait to hear what she has for us today. So Cynthia, do you want to unmute?
And I'm going to screen share.
Okay. Ooh, I can put it back.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just sit there. Oh, no, I'll sit here.
Okay, I'm not at the right place.
Yeah, you have to open the PowerPoint first,
Okay,
or or I can do it for you. There you go. I can do it for you if you want. You got it.
okay,
Excellent.
yay. This is the most stressful part of tonight for me. I'm done with the screen sharing part. Yay. Anyway, thank you, everybody. It means so much to me that you're here. And I've have had a few more incidents happen since I've spoken last. My last talk was in Syracuse for IANS, the New York chapter of IANS. Anyway, I'm gonna just read the very beginning of an article that I wrote for IANS for their Vital Signs magazine, which this was the cover of that you see here. And it just is a little synopsis of part of what I'm going to talk about tonight. So the impact of a UFO encounter at the age of 15 changed my life. It marked the beginning of a spiritual worldview, a deep concern for the environment, and the development of psychic abilities. I've received visions and downloads that have instilled a strong sense of purpose and a desire to serve. Some of those gifts are dreams of mysterious symbols and geometric forms, the source of my sacred geometry work today. This is the story of how these otherworldly experiences have influenced me and my creative process. So are you able to see? I guess you can change the way you view to see the screen.
Yes, we're good. We're good. Thank you.
I need to switch mine up a little bit. Okay, that's better. So in 1974 is when the most dramatic UFO experience happened for me. It was the most dramatic because it was a daytime UFO sighting that happened, blue sky, and I had never had any kind of a close encounter like that before. So it was pretty life-changing. Oh, now I'm trying to, trying to go to the next slide. Okay, there we go. So this is where I grew up in the highlighted area there, Hudson Valley, New York, in the lower part of New York. And the town that I grew up in was Yorktown Heights, which you could see there on the map. It's about an hour and a half north of New York City. And we lived in a suburban neighborhood. And the red dot that you see there, that's the street that I lived on. And my friend lived, I lived on Elk Court, and my friend lived just right down the street to the right before that road to the right tees into Poplar Street. So she lived on the corner of that other street. So it was a summer day, and it's beautiful blue sky day. And we decided we're just kind of wandering around the neighborhood. And that the yellow dot that you see is where we ended up. We walked by this road that at the time, this is a present day Google Map image of the road. At that time, that was a dirt road, and there was a no trespassing sign that was at the end of this road. And we saw the sign, we acknowledged the sign, but we thought it seemed like maybe it was a good idea to explore it anyway. So what was at the end of that road was a water treatment plant. And here, this is a present day picture. So it's probably different than it looked at the time. But we started to walk down this wooded dirt road. And as we got towards this complex, this water treatment plant complex, we became disoriented because we heard this humming noise. And I looked around to try to figure out where the sound was coming from. And so I looked over at the water treatment plant, and I could see the water circulating in this circular cement casing that was the water treatment plant. And the sound was not coming from there. The sound, I realized, because we weren't having a conversation at this time. We were just having this experience together. But I realized that the sound was actually coming from above us. And that little road there that you could see that dies into the forest there, even to this present day, there's a great deal of woodland in that undeveloped area, that it's like an undeveloped area in that neighborhood. And we were standing there in that little area there. And we looked up, and right directly above us, and it was very low to the ground, was a silver UFO. And it was seamless. It almost looked like silver, smooth, like a dolphin skin, or it almost looked like a metal skin, because there was no nuts or bolts or any seams or anything that we could notice that looked like it was put together in the way that we would put together airplanes and stuff. And I was just very transfixed on looking at this and trying to understand what I was seeing. I didn't have any understanding of what it could be in that moment. I was probably in shock and have no idea how much time went by. But the next thing I knew, I went to look to see where my friend had gone, and she was already at the very end of the road. She was already where we had first gotten off the main street. She was running as fast as she could, and I suddenly felt complete terror and also ran. And so we both ran, and she ran to her house and I ran to my house. We didn't talk about anything along the way running. She just ran, she went home, I ran, I went home. And we continued being best friends until I went off to college. And we never discussed it together, and we never told anybody about it. I never told my parents about it, and never talked to her about it until I was in my 30s and reached out to her I looked her up and reached out to her and asked her, do you remember, back when I was 15 and you were, 13, what happened when we went to the water treatment plant? And she recounted the same thing. She remembered the same thing. And that this was a real life changer for me. Even though we didn't talk about it, I started to have dreams, and I started to contemplate that we're not alone on there's some other beings that are here on this planet, something that's not explainable. And it just expanded my mind as to who we all are. One of the things that happened soon after this event was that I had this very vivid dream. And the dream was, I was in this white room, and there was a projection, there was a screen, a projection screen of some sort. And I was being shown like a slideshow of first just images of the planet, like beautiful images of the planet, the woodland, the rainforests, the oceans, and so on. And then the slideshow got faster and faster. And then I was being shown scenes of destruction, of war, of fire, of flooding, many more images than I've depicted here. But the message that I was being given was that these are scenes of the future that you will experience within this lifetime. And it was so realistic and so vivid that I remember talking to my mother about it and telling her, like, I was completely convinced that we were going to see we were going to live through sort of an apocalypse, sort of like a tribulation in our lifetime. And she just thought I was completely crazy. But so I didn't talk about it to too many people. And then actually I didn't talk about it to anybody. But that was a very, very, very vivid dream, and it stayed with me for my whole life. And then the other dream that I had soon after that dream was that the sky was this orange sky. And as far as the eye can see, there were UFOs that were coming slowly towards me in the sky. And I was given the message that they're coming to take people, to rescue people. And that my job was to help to keep people calm and to get them to board, to get on the craft. And so those two dreams have been really powerful dreams, and they've stayed with me for my life. And I've struggled with them. I've read so many books trying to understand what all of this was about. And as you probably all know, there are a lot of researchers that talk about that this isn't a good thing, that we don't really know what this is. And that would always make me feel very uncomfortable. And then I would stop researching it. And then there's other researchers that are saying this is possibly, a positive thing, and that they have a higher consciousness, and that they're here to help elevate us. So I would go back and forth during the course of my life in researching it and trying to understand it, but always feeling so frustrated because I could never get the answer. Nobody was ever going to tell me 100% what this is all about. about 10 years after that encounter that we had, was the Hudson Valley UFO event that happened. And so it happened between 1983 and 1986, and over 5,000 people were witnesses to these large silent craft that appeared. There were people that were in malls and had these crafts that were the size of football fields, just hovering above everybody in the mall. And Ellen Hynek has written a book about it. There's been a lot of research about it, and there's been movies about it as well. So that also happened in the area that I grew up. So as a result of all of this, I became, there are a lot of things about my personality that I felt I was looking at life in a different way. I would often be in the woods by myself behind my house, and I would just be looking at the woods, looking at the trees from the perspective of somebody that just landed on this planet and thinking, oh, that's interesting. This is what trees on Earth look like. And just always thinking in terms of the perspective of that's a possibility, that there are these beings that are here, that are visiting here, that are interacting or making themselves known, or that we can interact with in some way. And I never felt at that time that I was really having any sort of communication or interaction other than having a lot of dreams. And as I got older, I had more and more UFO encounters, which I'll talk to you a little bit about now. So in 1985, I was living in upstate New York, and somebody's in the waiting room. 1985, I was in upstate New York, and I was outside. I had just had my son. He was sleeping inside, and I just went outside to look at the sky. And I was out there with a few other people, and I was intentionally out looking in the sky, looking for UFOs and sort of calling them in. And I noticed that there was this star, this big bright star that was overhead pretty much at the zenith in the sky. And we were noticing satellites and planes and different things going by. And then after about 10-15 minutes, there was a light that came up from the horizon to the right, and it zipped up really quickly, really fast, and stopped at that star that was centered in the sky. And the light started to spin around in a circle around that light that had been there in the sky for the entire time that we were watching. And then the light zipped off to the left, out of sight, and then the star zipped off to the right. So that was sort of a shocking thing to realize that it definitely was not an explainable sighting. And then soon after that, a bunch of us were outside at night, and we were doing CE5 stuff without really knowing that was a thing. We were just all sort of doing like a standing meditation, and we were thinking, inviting in an experience. And we noticed after a little while that there were two lights that were coming from the distance, and they were flying, they were moving together perfectly simultaneously towards us, very, very, very slowly. And as it got closer over the course of about 5 minutes, we realized before it was overhead that these two lights were not separate things, that they were on either side of something very big. And this UFO that was there was completely black. And we can see the lights on either side of it. It was probably at least the size of a football field. And the way we could make out the shape of it was that it was blocking out the stars. It was a very starry night. And so you could see that there was this dark form above us that was blocking out the night sky. And it hovered above us for a little while, and then continued moving off. And we watched it. We could see where it was based on the two lights on either end of it. And then it it just dematerialized, and we could see the sky again, and it was gone. In 1989, so I would have these experiences where I would get these feelings that they are gonna come that night, or that they're around, or that they're in the sky, and I would go outside and I would see something, and that still happens. And in 1989, I was about to go to sleep, and I was in bed, and I got this feeling like they were gonna come that night. And I went to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I lived in this little town. It wasn't in the middle of nowhere. I lived in this little town. And I mean, it was kind of in the middle of nowhere because it was a little town, but in upstate New York here, but I wasn't out in the woods somewhere. So I bring this up because it always sort of perplexes me when things like this happen, and they're coming to you in a place where you would think that other people would see them. But anyway, so I'm sleeping at night, and I wake up and I hear this really loud humming noise outside in the street. And it just gets louder and louder and louder. And then I just go back to sleep, which often happens when this kind of phenomena happens. I just, even though you would think you'd want to get up and look out the window, you just are told to go to sleep, or you just suddenly feel like you're going to you need to just go back to sleep and ignore it. And that night I had this dream. I remember the next morning that in my room was this being that was just light, and I remembered feeling so amazing the next morning, because it felt like this kind of Christ consciousness kind of being, just so full of light, and this whoever it was, and I don't really, all I just remembered was it was a form, but it was light. And I remember that the person was just giving me a lot of information and talking to me about a lot of things, but I don't remember what it was about. I just remembered the next day feeling really good. And then, so that was when my son was about 4, and my son started having night terrors, and I started to get concerned because I have had this kind of phenomena happen to me from a young age, and I started to get concerned about whether or not something was happening to him, because I couldn't protect him. You know, it's the kind of thing where you might want to wake up to go to your kid if you think something's wrong, but if this is happening, you can't wake up, or you're made to go back to sleep again. Anyway, in 1992, we were driving home from the town that I live close by here, Oneonta, New York. And we're driving in the car up the mountain, and there was a fireball that went over the car. And we thought, whoa, you know, it was this big ball of fire that went really fast over the car, going in the same direction we were going in. And that's all we thought it was. You know, it's just a weird phenomenon in the sky. And so as we continued to drive back home, we saw it again going in a different direction this time, not in the same, I guess that would have been north-south direction. Now it was going in an east-west direction. And so that seemed a little bit bizarre. And then when we got home, we saw it a third time, and this third time it went over the house that we lived in, and it was followed by fighter jet planes. So I actually ended up going and meeting Bud Hopkins. I had a friend that knew him, and went down to his house and talked to him about this, because I was concerned about my son at the time. And he basically told me, yeah, he's probably being abducted, or they're probably also doing stuff with him, because it goes within family lines, and that really upset me. So for many years, I stopped really thinking a lot about it, looking in the sky, doing any research about it, because it's a hard thing to wrap your brain around, it to worry about your children in that way. And as it turns out, now in present day, my son has told me that there was stuff going on, like all of those times that I was worried things were going on when he was little, there were things going on. So, but he's turned out fine. he's a great person, and I'm okay too. So I don't think it's that horrible. From 2021 to now, I've witnessed, when I was still living in Colorado, a lot of orbs, and even here since moving to New York, I've had things happen here as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna launch into the more of the dreams and the symbols that I got. So in 2021 and 2012, I began working for law enforcement as a forensic artist. And I also started to get these dreams at night, and they went on for about 4 years, where I would suddenly get these dreams where these symbols would come. And I remember when the dream would begin, it felt like I would have this hyper attention in the dream state, that this was really important and this was information, and that it was from them. And so this one symbol would come, and another would come, and another, and it would go really, really, really fast. And there would be thousands of symbols, more than I could, really even comprehend. And then the dream would stop. And at the time when it happened, it always happened unexpectedly. I never knew that, I didn't expect the dreams that were going to come. So I didn't document them. And let me just see what I have next here. So when COVID happened, my work for law enforcement stopped, because people weren't going out, and they didn't have the same, they didn't need me as much. And I started to really get the strong message that I needed to document the symbols. I needed to switch my energy from this other work that I was doing and incorporate these symbols that I got in these dreams in my artwork somehow. But my problem is that I didn't have them documented. I didn't know exactly what they were. So I just didn't do it until finally I met a friend who I reached out to somebody who was doing art. He was calling them downloads. They looked very similar to what I was doing. And I met with him, and he also had a lot of UFO experiences. And he ended up saying to me, as far as remembering and as far as accessing that memory, he said, it's all inside you. He said, Cynthia, it's all inside you. And you just have to get out of the way and begin. You just have to get your mind out of the way. And somehow that really unlocked my hesitation. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to start writing down what I can remember. And in doing that, then it was sort of like an automatic writing thing, where these symbols just kept coming and coming and coming. And, 30 pages later, I had just pages and pages of these symbols. And in doing that, and in revisiting this and showing up and kind of saying to the universe, okay, I'm going to, I will attempt this. Those symbol dreams came back. So when they came back, I was more prepared to sit down and wake myself up, not sit down, but I'd be sleeping and I'd wake myself up from the dream. I'd memorize a couple of the symbols, and I'd wake up, I'd write them down, and then I'd go back to sleep. And definitely all of the symbols that I've drawn were not done that way, because there are thousands and thousands of them. mostly what I write down and draw is more of an automatic writing, as I was saying, sort of an experience where I tune into the feeling of those dreams and then I just allow myself to write. So in the course of those symbol dreams coming back again, they evolved into these geometries. And so because I had made that decision to show up and document the dreams, I had to teach myself how to draw what I was seeing in my dreams, these complicated geometries. So, and I don't mind if anybody has any questions along the way, if anybody wants to facilitate that, that's fine.
Cynthia, I
yes.
have a question. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing before I, forget. So you have mentioned your family members. Now, usually, those kind of events are family members kind of communal kind of together, they, family joined together kind of behind, I guess so, beyond this life, so the mom, the parents, the dad, the daughters, the sons, they all join together. They say, yeah, we're going to come in and we're going to have those experiences. Do you see that your kids have the same experiences? Do you sense that was agreed or pre-agreed, or do you have the kind of I guess the knowledge?
Well, definitely my son. My daughter is a pretty evolved person, and she's open to all of this as well. My mother used to take us outside when we were little kids. And because it was my mother, it just seemed like normal, but it's not really normal. But she would take us outside to look for UFOs and ask them. I remember her saying when I was little that we're going to go outside and look for UFOs and see if they'll take us with them.
Wow.
Yeah. So my mother grew up in Germany, and she grew up in a little town where Hitler had been developing back engineering UFO technology in a mountain there. I've done a lot of research about it. So she was in that town where that technology was being developed during the war. So who knows, I don't know what happened with her.
Wow. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So at the beginning of all of this, I would just sit down. Wake up in the morning, I'd get my coffee, I'd sit down at my drawing table and just start automatic writing. And I felt guided. I felt like a voice would say, now do this, now draw this, now put this here, now do, and it was super free. It was very, I felt like I wasn't the one doing it, so I wasn't being critical of it. I was just the tool, just sort of in the same way as a forensic artist, I draw other people's memories to help identify people. I kind of showed up to do these drawings in the same way, that I wasn't going to judge it. I was just going to let it, whatever happened, happen. And so I did quite a few of these, and, fast at the very beginning. And I wanted to tell you about another dream. This drawing, this to me was my impression of souls before we come here. This is sort of like what you were just saying, Ross, like a family cluster or a cluster of souls, all connected before we take on our lives here on Earth. But I wanted to share this dream because this was really interesting and very symbolic, and maybe somebody will get something out of it. I had this dream that I was shown this large cement rectangular container, and the top was open and the bottom was closed. And there was on one of the walls of this cement, and it was big, the cement container, were 7 faucets. And they told me in the dream, I never see who these people are that are telling me these things in dreams. I'm being instructed somehow. But they told me in the dream that each of these faucets represent a bloodline or a family line. And they said that the water, I'm going to say water, but the energy that has been that they've worked hard to provide to each of these faucets that we can tap into is very abundant and very high frequency, and each of these 5 faucets, or 7 faucets, I'm sorry, just has a huge amount of this substance, of this frequency, of this water that's available to us. To me, it made me think about, if nowadays, if you sit down to meditate, you can tune in so quickly. It's like this energy it's so readily available. That's what it felt like to me. It's like, if you tune into it, if you turn on the faucet, it's so available. It's so there for you. And they said, sadly, a lot of these faucets have not been turned on at all yet. They haven't been tapped into yet, even though all of this effort has been put into making it available for us. And they said to me that the 5th faucet was my family or my bloodline faucet. And they said it hasn't been opened yet. And so they took a glass and they opened it and they filled it up with this crystalline water, and they handed it to me. And I knew that it was, just going to be a very, just a transformative thing to be drinking this water, that it wasn't just drinking water, right? And so I said a prayer. I said a couple of prayers before drinking it, and then I drank it, and I woke up the next morning and I felt every atom in my body. I felt so activated from that dream. Well, the dream seemed so symbolic to me, and I talked to a lot of people about it, and I did somebody said to me, well, there's 7 epochs, and we are in the 5th epoch right now. And so I did a little research into that, and you can look it up, the 7 epochs, and look up the 5th epoch. And according to all of that, in the 5th epoch, which is where we are supposedly in the 5th epoch right now. What we are learning is we're learning about how to master, or not master, but we're learning how to deal with evil. And we're learning how to ascend, basically. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting dream. I wanted to share that. This was a dream I got of a schematic of a UFO. And there were 3 different drawings that I did that in the dream, it was like if you put it together somehow, it would create, it was a schematic. It was like a blueprint. So that was kind of cool. This one I felt like was some kind of a map, which is why I called it the map. I did this drawing when I was in a conference with Ricardo Gonzalez, who was speaking about his experiences, and second day into the conference, he projected on the screen all of these symbols that looked exactly like what I draw. And so anyway, throughout the conference, I decided I would just see what kind of energy came through from what the information that he was giving. So this was one of several drawings I did. Okay, so this was one of the earlier on drawings, and this was a real mind-blowing thing to me, because so as I was saying in the beginning, at the beginning I would just start doing drawings, and I would hear, like, it wasn't like a audible voice in my head, but I would just hear sort of instructions, or my intuition very precisely telling me what to do with this. Where to put the circles, and you can notice that some of the circles are not closed all the way. They're partly open, and others are closed all the way. That was all I heard to do that. So after I'd collected a whole bunch of these drawings, I didn't really know what to do with them. So what do you do with things you don't know what to do with? You post them on Facebook, right? So I posted a whole bunch of these on Facebook, and just to see what people's reaction is, and see if anybody has any explanation or any insight into what I was doing. And about a month later, I got an email from a friend of mine in California, and she was emailing me about these drawings, and she said, she was really fascinated by the work that I was doing. And she said that she's been sharing them with her friends that were scientists and physicists. And she said, I wanted to share with you what one of my friends, it's a physicist, said about this drawing. So I'm going to read that to you, because it really kind of blew my mind. And the reason why is because, as you'll hear in a second, he talks about this in a scientific way. He's saying that there's actual mathematical equations or recognizable symbols in here that I had no idea. You know, this was drawn very quickly, and I'm not a scientist or a mathematician. So he writes about this one, and he says, the first one looks like a map of all subatomic particles, including dark energy and dark matter. At the center is the Higgs boson, and the 12 spokes around the Higgs are the things the Higgs breaks down into. The Higgs particle continuously rotates through 12 gates. Depending on the curvature of local space-time, it will break down into one of the 12 subatomic particles. This diagram is kind of physics theory of everything that everyone in the physics world is working on, with thousands of human models having been proposed. Because dark matter and energy have very small interactions with our light matter and light energy, they're practically unobservable, and therefore very little is known about them. So they're not on humans' standard model, but I think they are in this diagram. Looking at the diagram and using clock notation, you have different particles at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, through 11 o'clock. The formulas inside the circles are the basis for the particles' wave equations. Intuitively looking at it, the particles with mass have circles with a break in the circle 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9 o'clock, representing up quark, down quark, electron, neutrino, Z boson, and W boson. I'll just skip ahead because it's a lot of scientific terminology. But he says at the end, he says, it's interesting that some of the symbols are standard scientific notation from physics and mathematical analysis. gradients, deltas, summations, and Greek letters. Since Greece was an Atlantis outpost, they trace back to Atlantis, which traces back to Lyra, Orion, Pleiades, etc. So these dream diagrams likely originate from one of those star systems and are millions of years old. So that really blew my mind. I had to go back to bed after reading that email. It was just like, I don't know what this is all about. And like, for example, with this drawing, people started to come to my studio in Lyons and in Colorado. And because I was posting these online, people were attracted to them and wanted to see my work in person. And one who's now a friend of mine had a dream the night before about this one, and came into my studio, and she looked at that and said, "Oh my gosh, I dreamt about this last night. I saw this exact thing." And she said, but it had this like line with two dots on either side of it. And so I pointed out the line on the bottom right. I said, "You mean that?" And she's like, "Yes, it's exactly what I dreamt about." So strange. And with this one, you could see like the gold symbols that are closer, that are not closer, but that are more bold. And that was trying to demonstrate in these dreams, what I was seeing was with these geometries and symbols, was that it was multiple layers of information. It was like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and that it was information. It was somehow, it was information. This one, when I was dreaming about this one, I saw the geometry and then the line coming across the top of the geometry, and all of these things just started to appear out of the darkness of my dream. And then at the very end of the dream, these eyes appeared, and it really kind of blew me away. I was not expecting that at all, but I was very excited to draw that and to paint that. I thought, oh my gosh, this is like so cool. And so I called this one Consciousness. So in 2021, it was New Year's Day. Is New Year's Day, 2021. And it was that night. And I was at my house, I was by myself, and I suddenly got this feeling like that they were here. I got this message. We're here, go outside and look in the sky. And so I went outside and I saw this light that was flashing. It looked like there were many colors of lights that were spinning around this one light that was in the sky, in a place that there's not normally a light in the sky, because I look at the sky all the time. So I have an idea of what's what and what's where. And so I got my phone and I took the phone and I put it against the post by the end of my sidewalk there, and I videotaped it. And when I went back and I looked at the videotape and looked screen by screen by screen, I was noticing that there were, with every flash of the light, it changed color. So this is just like maybe a half a second right here of flashes. And with every flash of that one light, this is just the one light, and these are different screenshots of the one light. With every flash, it would change color, and there were these sort of geometric forms that would flash and appear. And I sent it to a friend of mine that's a filmmaker, and I asked her, "Can you please zoom in on this, make it as big as you can, and slow it down as much as you can?" And so she did that, and discovered there was a very continuous, predictable flashing pulse that it was doing. It wasn't irregular at all. And and so I have that video. I've uploaded it to Facebook a couple times, and it's very mesmerizing. If anybody wants to find it on my Facebook page, I could repost it again too. It's a very mesmerizing thing to watch. And a friend of mine, my friend Daniel, who was the person that had encouraged me to start writing the symbols, he was watching this video and sort of meditating on it, and then had a dream that night that he was asking the light who they are, and they had said to him, I forgot the word. I'm sorry. It's the crucial part to the little story that I just forgot, but hopefully I'll remember it before I'm done talking to you guys. But it's sort of like an emissary. That's not the word, but it's like somebody that's on a diplomatic mission. That's the definition to that word. Envoy. Okay, that's the word. He got the word envoy for that light. This is a drawing that I did called Venus, and I started playing around with my pendulum on these drawings just to see what sort of energy that they had. And I started using my mind to get the pendulum to spin in different, or move in different directions over this particular image. And so I'd get it to spin to the right very actively, and then I'd focus on another point on this drawing and get it to go in that direction, or whatever direction to that I was focusing on. And then I would try to get it to spin to the right very actively, and then reverse course and spin to the left very actively. And what I found in doing that was I got this lesson, which is really not about pendulums or any of that at all, but it is about the mind. And the lesson that I got from that was that the pendulum, when it spins to the right, there's a momentum that happens. And if you want to shift that momentum, it takes a lot of mental willpower. It takes a lot of visualizing a different reality, visualizing the pendulum going in the opposite direction. And so the lesson that I got in that was that this world that we're living in, we can see it, we can feel it, we're observing it, all of the crazy things that are going on, all of the momentum that's going on, that's going on and on and on and on in this direction that we don't really want it to be going in. And in order to shift the reality, we have to be able to be in the reality and notice the reality and see the reality, but use our mind to shift the momentum in the other direction. And it takes effort. It's not a passive thing to make change. It takes effort. It's sort of like getting into warrior mode, and realizing and understanding that we came here at this time on this planet with all this crazy stuff that's going on. And we chose to be here, and we chose to be here to make a difference. And that takes effort, it really does. So I started to experiment with different color papers and just continuing the process of just letting these evolve. And then I started to shift into not just drawing and not just being given direction, but deciding that with using these as a real spiritual practice, and that with every line that I drew, putting heart-centered energy into every line with complete showing up with my, complete meditative, focused, heart-centered energy. In order for these images to actually hold that my part of my soul's energy so that it can hopefully help people. And I've done workshops with people where we've done these geometries. I've printed out aerial views of their homes, and then they did geometries where they would concentrate with every single line that they drew of these geometries over their homes. They would focus on love, or they'd focus on protection, or whatever it was that they wanted to put above and around their homes. This one is, this one's reminding me of a experience that I had before I moved from lines. It was October, I think it was like October 1st of 2 years ago now. And I was driving from a concert in the hills in Lyons, and there was somebody that was pulled over on the side of the road, that was on the phone behind her car, calling the sheriff's department. And before we got to her car, there was some random man that was walking in the road into traffic towards us, 11 o'clock at night. It was very bizarre. So we pulled over, and I rolled down my window and I said, "Are you okay? Can we, and this lady says, "No, I'm not okay." And I said, "Do you need help?" And she said, "Yes." And so we pulled over. I got out of the car. I went over to her, and she was on the phone with the sheriff's department. She was worried about the man that was her boyfriend that was walking into the night into traffic. But she was acting really, really bizarre. She was just acting kind of like a zombie, like just totally out of it, and acting shocked. And she kept telling me that she was really afraid, but she wasn't afraid of the boyfriend who was walking into the night. She was afraid of something else. So after a while, I knew the sheriff's department was on its way, and I knew that my friend probably wanted to get going. So I said, is it okay with you? The sheriff's going to be here. I'm going to leave. And she said, "Please don't leave. I'm really afraid. Please stay here." So I said, "Okay, let me help you." So I'm kind of going into my law enforcement mode, and I'm like, let me help you. Let's get in your car. And you're in the middle of the street. Let's get in the car. Let's pull your car over to the side of the road. Put your flashers on, put your emergency lights on, and wait here until the sheriff gets here. And if you don't feel safe, you can just lock your door. And so she agreed. She thought, okay, that makes sense. So she leaves from behind her car, and she goes over and gets into her car. And she's halfway into her car, and I'm standing out, by the driver's side of the car in the street. And I lean over to talk to her, to say, okay, to say, okay, now, put the key in the ignition. And I lean over to talk to her, and I see in the back of the car, between the back seat of the car and the roof of the back of the car, was this green orb that was just floating in the back of the car. And it was pulsating this green light. It was illuminating the car. And then and then getting dimmer again and illuminating the car and getting dimmer again. And again, sort of like with the first instance that I told you about, the first close UFO encounter that I had, I just was sort of mesmerized by watching this green light. I didn't know what I was seeing. I was trying to understand, is this something that people get for their cars now, that hover in their cars? And you know, I realized, no, this is probably not something that anybody has bought at Walmart or anything. And it sort of scrambled my brain, because I went from being very on task of, I'm going to help this lady, I'm going to help her pull over, I'm, going to get her, settled down and ready to wait for help to come, to just having no memory of what I was even there to help her do. And I ended up just standing up and I said to her, well, bye. And I just left. And I got into my friend's car and I just was like sort of stunned and just saying to my friend, I don't know what just happened. There was a green orb floating in this lady's car. And my friend, who normally would have been pretty excited about something like this, he was just like, okay, well, I'm really tired. I want to go home and go to bed. It turns out that I ended up contacting a friend in the sheriff's department that I knew. And I told her, she was a deputy, and I told her about this story. And I asked her if she could look into it, because I thought there's got to be a police report. This lady was on the phone to sheriff's department and everything. So she was this young deputy. She was very interested as well. And so she did. She looked it up and she contacted me the next day. And she said, I looked it up and I do see that this call went in, but there's no report, because by the time the sheriff's department got there, the car wasn't there anymore. So they left before the sheriff's department got there. So it's a kind of a frustrating ending to that story, but that's all I know about that. But that was like completely bizarre. And then in 2021, I went to Hawaii. I actually went twice during COVID. The first time I just went there and visited. And the second time I went back, I was invited to do a workshop there. And when I was there the first time, we were in a house that was overlooking this bay on the Big Island. And at night, there were I kept seeing all of these lights that were hovering above the water and going into the water. And then during the day, I'd be in these bays with dolphins. And so this next few paintings that I did, so you could just kind of see the progression of the work going from the black paper to the tan paper to now more painterly. And I had this experience in one of the bays there where people were swimming around and they're trying to locate dolphins and see dolphins and everything. And I kind of got into this headspace where I just wanted to be in the moment, in that world, the world of the ocean, which I'm never in. And so I just decided, instead of swimming around and trying to see what I could see, just being there in that space that I was in. And I had a snorkel on and just like looking down and just being part of that, feeling what it was like to be part of that world. And the light from the sun was beaming down, and all these rays of light were coming down all around me. And there was this one chant that had been going through my head at that time a lot. And so I started, even though I had a snorkel in, I started to just sing into the water, this chant over and over again. And as I did that, these little round transparent balls that had illuminated light inside of them. Some of them were white, some of them were red, some of them were green, some of them were blue. Small little things, that's little beings of some sort from the sea, came up when I was doing this sound, and they came up and they just surrounded me. And it was just so amazing. And then when I stopped, they all just sort of went back down again into the depths below. And then when I started doing this chant again, they came back up again, and they were just all these little balls of light were just all around me. And it was just the most heart-opening experience. It just, and so these paintings that I'm showing you here were just sort of my way of remembering them and trying to capture those little beings of light that I got to experience. And in a lot of ways, the ocean is just as mysterious as space. And this one was done the next year that I went back to Hawaii and did a workshop there. And this is called 12 Strand. This was, I was going through a lot of stress at one point with stuff going on, family stuff that was going on. And one thing that I haven't really spoken enough about is that when you do these drawings, when you do sacred geometry and all of these lines start lining up and everything, you can feel it. You could feel it in your brain. You could feel like this activation that's happening from these geometries. And this geometry in the center of this drawing is a 64 tetrahedron. It's a very complicated geometry. And I began doing these drawings of the 64 tetrahedron from a dream that I had, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But this one, so this is my second attempt at doing this geometry. And I was doing it to work through stress and work through, anxiety that I had about stuff going on. And when you do these geometries and you do these drawings, you can start off in the beginning of the evening feeling not really great emotionally. And then by the time you're done, you're in a state of such joy of just doing this work. So for me, it's just a great tool to shift my energy and my frequency. So that was the headspace that I was in when I was doing this. And so I was using it as a tool. And before I was done with it, I knew that I wanted to do symbols on the bottom of it, but I hadn't gotten to that point yet. I knew that I was going to do the silver leaf that you see there. And underneath there was going to be symbols, but that was the last thing that I was going to do, which is usually the way it happens. So this one night I had a dream about my great-grandmother. And my great-grandmother was from Nova Scotia. She was from a tribe called the Micmac tribe, and I'm not pronouncing it right, and I'm sorry about that. But when I woke up that morning, I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if what sort of writing that tribe did, if they had any sort of writing or hieroglyphics or anything. And I have to say that when I first started this drawing, oftentimes titles, when I'm doing these paintings, titles will come to me. And if I hear the titles or I hear some kind of a phrase, I'll write it down on the back of the painting. So when I first started this one, at the very beginning of it, I heard the title, When the Ancestors Sing. And so I thought, okay, that, I would have never thought of that. So I wrote that down on the back. Had the dream, and I looked up that tribe that my great-grandmother was from. And and I just did a search on hieroglyphics or writings, and I found the symbols that are on here, which is the Anna Maria prayer. And so I decided that's like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect. So that's what I ended up recreating and drawing on the bottom. So, okay, so this is the 64 tetrahedron. And Ross, how are we doing on time?
So we are fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I had this dream. This was another very vivid, very powerful dream that I had. And in the dream, I was driving in my car, and there was, to the left of me was like a big reservoir, and it was this big blue, very still water. And as I'm driving on the right, there was a cliff that was going up. And as I'm driving, I see to the left on the reservoir these crystalline structures that look similar to this, but they were like the dimensions of a cathedral. They were narrow and really tall, and they were the most beautiful blues and greens, and they were like crystal, but there were lines like you can see in this drawing, but it was completely three-dimensional, or even like four-dimensional. It was as if, it just went, you could just see multiple dimensions in it. And it was so beautiful. And so these things were hovering above the water. And as I was driving, I realized that I knew some kind of song or some kind of chant or some kind of prayer that went with each individual one. And so I said the prayer, or I said whatever the words or whatever the song was. It might have been some kind of song in another language, like a kirtan, like a chant. So I said them. There was some kind of vocalization that was connected to these objects, these forms. And so I said them to each one. I said whatever it was that I had remembered went with it, that I guess activated it in some way or something. And then when I was done, it would disappear, and then another one would appear. And so there probably were about four or so as I'm, driving my car and, activating or saying these prayers in another language to these forms. And so then I get down the road, and the road curves around to the left, and I see this low flying over the water, low flying UFO, and I recognize it in my dream. I recognize it as being the one that I saw when I was a kid. And I'm afraid. And I think, oh no, it's that UFO from when I was a kid. And so I'm thinking I'm going to try to outrun it. I'm going to try to drive really fast and get away. And then I realize you're not going to be able to do that, just stop the car. So I stopped the car, and out of the car jumps this woman. She looks like a woman. She's got short, dark hair, kind of curly, the roundish face. And she's wearing these like white, brand new looking tennis shoes that are sort of a little oversized, and she's kind of walking in them, and she's sort of really like beaming, like very happy, and she's sort of thrilled at the experience of kind of bouncing along in these shoes, which was so weird. And she walks up to my car, and she's now in front of my car, and I'm in my car, kind of getting out of my car. And I know her, I recognize her. Not from this life, but from somewhere else. I know her, and I know her in a way, it's like I know her as if I've seen her every day of my life. Like we're that familiar with each other. So it wasn't like this incredible reunion party. It was just like, I just completely knew her. And I said to her, how much longer? I was just feeling like, when can I be done with this earth experience already, you know? And she looks at me and she just laughs and she says, oh, no, you're not done yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, so like frustrated. Like, I just want to be done in the dream. So I say, well, can you at least tell me, what do I have to do? What am I here to do? And she said, that's what I'm coming here to tell you. I'm going to tell you exactly what you have to do. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You're going to tell me what I have to do, what I'm doing here? And she's like, yep, that's why I came. Come with me. I'm going to show you. So we begin to walk. The UFO is still hovering, partly above the road, partly above the reservoir. And we start walking down this road that's like a cobblestone road. And out of the UFO comes another female. She's a tall blonde and long, straight blonde hair, looked young. And I got the feeling like she was sort of security or something like that. So I was in the middle, and the tall blonde was to the left of me and the other was to the right of me. And we're now walking across a bridge, and the water is to the left, and it's explained to me that this is a reservoir and that there's a dam, and that my job is to shut the power down to the dam. And I'm like, okay, I got this. I've got handy friends. No worries at all. Shut the power down to the dam. I got this. No problem. And she's like, no, wait a minute. I'm going to show you exactly. So we walk along and we get to this one very long building that it's all like a stone building, and it has all of these little windows that are all lit up along. And it's this, I guess, dam building, not a dam building, but a building that's goes with the dam. And she says, you have to shut the power off to the dam. And there's exotic animals in there. She said, not as exotic as on our planet, but you have to release the animals. And I was like, no problem. I got this. I was like so excited. And then that was it. Then the dream was over. I wake up, I'm like sketching these cathedral grid things, like trying to remember that. And then I'm writing down what she said. Shut the power off to the dam. And and as I'm waking up, I'm thinking, what the heck does that mean? Shut the power off to the dam. I've got no idea what that means or where this is or where this building is or anything like that. So anyway, if anybody has any insight into what I'm supposed to do, I would welcome it. This is so then I went on to continue exploring this geometry because of that dream. And I did the original, which I sold, and then I began doing different prints of it. And the gold line work that you see around it it's like hand embellished 12 karat gold pen that I do on these. So this is a G clay. And here's another one. And I titled this one, "And So It Is," because I have friends that do some really powerful prayer work. and always say at the end of it, and so it is. And I always love that so much because it just seems like such the sealing of the intention of the prayer. And this one came to me before I did it. A lot of times I'll show up and just draw whatever, but I had this concept of doing 3 of the same, and with the concept of like kind of what Christ had said, you know, where 2 or more gather, there I will be, and sort of like a Christ consciousness thing. This is this original painting was about I think 5 feet wide, so it was a good size painting, and it has quite the presence. And this is meaningful to me because it's what I feel like we are all doing. We are gathering together with these intentions to like bring up the vibe, you know, to help shift things here. And the more of us that gather together, the more that energy, like I was talking about with the faucets and that energy that's made available to us, the more of us that come together with the intention to bring light here through us as containers of light, the more light is given, the more light comes down for us. And this is an example of a friend of mine commissioned me to do this. This is another large painting, and she had this whole vision of doing multiple orbs or spheres on the canvas. And so she pushed me out of my comfort zone. One of the things that I actually started to do early on, because people were seeing what I was posting on Facebook, was I started to do workshops just to share and teach other people how to do sacred geometry because of the way it was helping me. And I've had a lot of workshops, and will continue to have workshops now that I'm resettled here in New York. And at the beginning of doing the workshops, I would staple together some papers and give people the step-by-step process. And as more and more workshops were happening, and then I went to Hawaii to do some workshops and flew to New York to do workshops, I ended up developing this workbook that has 3 different geometries in them, that when you combine them, you could combine them to get these 4 different designs on the cover, or you could, you know, it could be much simpler than that too. But anyway, I'm just like mentioning that if anybody that ends up watching this is interested in learning more about sacred geometry, and not that I'm you know, completely knowledgeable about sacred geometry. I'm knowledgeable about what I do. And I kind of self-taught myself, and I wasn't able to find a lot of step-by-step how to do these sacred geometry forms anywhere. So I created this to help other people to learn how to do it. So, and this is just sharing this. It's not that the resolution isn't great, but this is this is the last thing that I did since moving to New York. A little bit reminiscent of that green orb that was in the car. Without that one, didn't have a female deity in it though that I saw. But anyway, most all of the work that I've done is either originals are available, or everything is available for print. I've had lots of reproductions made of my work. So if anybody's interested, please just reach out. And here is my information. And that I welcome any questions or anything that anybody might want to ask about. And I think I'm gonna take off the screen share. Should I do that now?
Yeah,
Ross?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, it's good.
Yeah.
We can dive into questions, I guess so. So I would like to open the stage for anybody to please um uh, please ask questions.
Ross, Felice has a question. And then she just took off. Oh, now
There
she's
she
back.
Please go.
You're on
Hi.
there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What? I just have to integrate all that you just shared. I mean, absolutely
Well,
incredible. And my question is, when you wake up, or not when you wake up, when you're in this state and you're having these visions and these dreams, and they're so visceral, right? It's happening. And then do you wake up, do you draw kind of half in your sleep, or do you get up and or make notes? And are there ever a time when you're like, oh, I need to sleep tonight, so not tonight, please?
all right, so to answer your question, the dream with the like the cathedral-like forms, and then the dream with the faucets, those dreams, as soon as I woke up, I started to write them down, and I started to sketch out what I saw in those dreams. The symbol dreams, there's so, yes, I have woken myself up to write down symbols, but there's so many symbols that it's like, there's no way I could write down thousands and thousands of them. And with the geometries, I don't wake up, like as soon as I wake up in the morning and start drawing them, I will wake up, I will show up, I'll get myself some coffee or some tea or whatever, and then I'll sit down and meditate for a few minutes and try to tune back into that memory, and then allow myself to just be guided, like I was talking about. And so getting into that mind space of I'm just going to allow myself to be guided, and I'm not going to be very attached. I'm not going to try to control, because I'm a Virgo. So I like, that it goes against my grain to just be anything, allow myself to just do anything, even if it's scribbly or whatever, not exact and not precise. But yeah, so I don't know, does that answer your question? And then as far as like the dreams and feeling like, give me a break. I've shared a lot of, I know this talk is very image dense, and there's tons of images, but you have to realize it also represents, the geometries represent from like 3 years. I started this at the end of 2020 is when all of this started happening, and the geometries. So no, I never feel, I love my dreams. I really do. Like, I never feel like these dreams are a drag. I always am amazed by them. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. And just to be clear, I wasn't implying they were a drag. I mean, how
No,
many?
I know.
Yeah, just sometimes when I get these messages, there's been period of times when it's just like in the middle of the night, I have to get up and write these messages, and
Yes.
it happens so much, and then I'm up, it feels like for hours sometimes.
Yeah.
I go back and then there's more. I was wondering your experience for that.
What kind of messages do you write down?
It's images and it's information, it's downloads and information.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do you have a website?
I do. It's groundedillumination.com. It needs a facelift. And all Kathy's saying yes. It's groundedillumination.com. So
Okay, yeah.
this was all post NDE for me. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'll connect you on Facebook.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So good.
All right, anybody else? Questions? Well, if not, I have a question. So, yes, Cynthia, thank you very much for awesome insights. Now, kind of my question is, I don't know if you know this or not, you don't need to, but I'm just kind of curious. So it is called the Eternal Life Lotus, which is based on a 15th dimensional unified field, creation of physics, which is the primal light primal light flows, which is I think so it's pronounced K Rasha, which is based on Ashiana Dean and a Hayes work. Do you know any of this stuff that I
No.
just spit out?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It's just there are kind of, and I've actually seen a lot of the images, so it be, I think so, so it be 3, I think so. It really it's kind of it was showing the eternal life, what is called the eternal life lotus versus the or the daisy flower of life, quote unquote. There are different variations of a quote unquote flower of life. And the one that you had on so it be, I think so 3 specifically, maybe 2 also, they have definitely that resemblance of that 15-dimensional unified field creation physics behind it, geometry, sacred geometry, that is. So just kind of FYI.
Send me that information. I'd like to read about it.
I shall will. Joe, question. Oh, you muted, Joe.
I don't look like Joe, do I?
No, you said Joe. It said
Hi, it's
Joe.
hi, it's Brenda. I just wanted
Hi,
to say
Brenda.
hi, Cynthia.
Oh, hi.
And I want to ask you how your moving to New York, how that's affected your energy and your art. And I came in kind of late on this. I'm sorry if you've already explained all that, but I just wondered how you're doing.
Well, the house that I live in has needed some work, so I've been busy doing that. Interestingly, when before moving here, I was thinking, when I come back to New York, I want to start doing CE5 stuff here. Does everybody here know what that is? CE5?
Yep.
It's where you go outside with people, or it doesn't have to be outside, but it's where you join together with people to meditate, to initiate a conscious connection with galactic beings. Okay. And a lot of times people will see lights in the sky or UFOs or whatever. So I had this idea that when I came to New York, that I wanted to, start that up here. But when I got here, I was so exhausted from just the move and, all the things that needed to be done before the winter. And so I would end up going to sleep early and, just crashing and just, but what's so funny is about 2 weeks after I got here, I had my neighbor drove by that lives in the house behind those windows in the back behind me. She lives in the house behind there. You can't see it because her lights are not on now. But anyway, so she was driving by, and she stops in front of my house and she says to me, "Did you see the light last night above your house?" And I said, no, what light? She said, "Oh, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and there was this white light that we thought was a star, but then we were watching it and it was moving back and forth, going to the woods behind your house and going, in front of your house. And then she says, but then we saw this guy across the street with the green cap on, that he must have been operating a drone. And I'm like, what are you like 11 o'clock at night? Who's operating a drone? Why would there be a drone flying over my house? And how can you see? Do you guys see how dark it is right now? Like,
Yes, very dark. You can't see a diddly squat.
how they can see from, like, I don't know, there's a like a lake between our house and their house. How they can see from their house, which is kind of far away, to like in front of my house, a guy standing, they said, back into the woods a little bit with a green hat. Like, how can they see that? So anyway, so they contact the other neighbors to find out who's flying a drone. Nobody's flying a drone. Nobody in the neighborhood's flying a drone. No, and now everybody in the neighborhood is a little bit concerned about this situation, because they're like, who the heck is flying drones in our neighborhood, right? So next thing I know, everybody in the neighborhood is going out at night to see the lights in the sky. So now the next night, night number 2, I was asleep again, and all the neighbors are now gathering to look for who's flying the drone. And so now this white light comes back again above my house, and now a red light comes out of it. And the red light starts going back and forth fast over my house, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, while this white light is there. But now there's no guy flying drone across the street anymore. And so it just was the most bizarre thing, because it was my intention to, like, let me get people together and let's go look at the sky together. And I was just too exhausted to do it. But now my neighbors are doing it without me. It's so hilarious. The third night I did go out. They called me at like 11, and I walked down to their driveway and saw some light in the sky. So they're there. And I've seen actually lights in my woods. I go sit out. Sometimes I'll sit outside at night, and there's no explanation for a light hovering around in the woods, because there's nothing 150 acres up at all that should be there. So anyway, that's been kind of fun. And I've been doing a lot of talking to the city about public art and kind of getting back up and running with that. So.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Shirley,
Shirley.
I can't find the raise hand thing down here.
That's okay.
Hi, Shirley.
Do you have prints available of your work?
I do. Yes. So you can contact me. My website was on the end of the talk.
Probably would be a good idea, Cynthia, to just leave that screen kind of there maybe for a while, so people can snap the thing.
it was on the invitation.
Say okay.
And we can put it on the description of the video when it's up. So surely you can get it off of there.
Okay, so
Okay.
my website is cynthiamarsh.fineaw.com. It stands for Fine Art World. And most of everything is on there. Everything that I have done, I can get prints made of. So if you saw something that you don't see on my website, just reach out to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
They were beautiful. They're beautiful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Can I stop sharing, or do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah.
And they're portals for any of us that Julia has some, I have some, and Gar has some. I mean, they are amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want some.
It's a definitely energy
Mhm.
that raises our frequency, raises our vibrations, and that's so very important in today's times. So just so very important. So, all right, who else? We have Janet was first.
I am amazed that you've done all this work since, did you say 2020?
Yeah, I think mostly like 2021.
I'm amazed. I just,
Yeah.
that's just a lot of beautiful work in
Thank
that time. And
Thank
I was thinking about that experience you had about the dam.
Yeah.
And it kind of came to me that, is it symbolic? In other words, is there some power that you're shutting off that you need to work on to open? I mean, that's just what I got intuitively. So I just thought I'd share it. But I really, really enjoy your work. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Miss Alberts, Joe Alberts. Oh, somebody else had a hand on. Anybody else?
I was just gonna say about that dam thing, it's just, it's about that dam thing, about, you have to shut off the water to the dam is
No,
what.
shut off the power. To the
Shut
dam.
off the power to the dam.
But
So
yeah,
a dam is something that blocks something. So shutting off the power to the block is a dam is a block. So to shut off the power to the block means to open to open it up and to let it flow through. Could be anything, you know, but it sounds like creativity and love, you know, just the whole power of love.
well,
And
interestingly, yeah, go ahead.
no, I just kept, I have like 100 associations from what you were saying. There's a whole bunch of stuff that just clicked into mind. Where two or more are gathered is a big line in one of the Findhorn songs that when I opened with the affirmation, the great affirmation and the great the other one, that there's a whole song about where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of you. And I just sent you a copy of the words of that song. It's really quite amazing. But there was another one. Yeah. I can't even remember it now. There's just so much coming in really fast. It's like, oh dear, I can't even think of it. But it's in the great affirmation. There's a line that says that the old affirmation is talking about how there's these powers and we're asking them for help, and we want this plan to seal the door where evil dwells. And then in the new affirmation, it doesn't mention evil at all or sealing any doors. But it does say, where is it? It just had it in the, here it is. It talks about how we are the plan, that we are the love, we are the light, we are the one. And from this oneness, comes forth and plan. God's plan is made real. And with this earth, we are the plan. We are the plan. And that's when we let this love and light flow. And so just reminded me of that with the dam, you know, that when the dam is open, when the flow happens, we are the plan. The plan is there. There's no need to seal anything. There's nothing to seal away. It's all whole. And I'll think about the exotic animals. That's interesting.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I happened upon, it was probably a year after this dream, I happened upon discovering that throughout Europe, there's a real, and maybe here in this country too, I'm not sure, but there's a real program to to open up dams. And to release the water. And they say that they're doing it because it's better for the ecology, it's better for the animals, it's better for the forest, it's better for everything to not dam water up and try to control it, but release it. So that was another thing that I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe it's more coming from like an ecological place.
Right. And I'm thinking dreams always have many levels. So it can be the physical level of actually releasing the dams. And they're doing that in the West here now. That idea is already going into effect. They're taking down dams. But there's also there's the mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical levels in dreams. So they have any level you want to look at, it's there in every dream. So,
Joe, question? Joe, you on mute.
I was gonna say, oh, well, go ahead, Joe. I'll stop.
I will just say this quick, Cynthia, we miss you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad your experiences are increasing, not decreasing. And I have learned a lot about the plasma universe and the amount of energy and the consciousness that fills that whole universe. And that brings me back to your drawings. And you were there before anybody ever wrote those books.
Wow.
Yeah. And all these things that you're talking about tonight, it all is part of that universal energy. And who knows what it looks like? Because even the best of the scientists don't know really what it looks like. But there's no saying that your stuff is not what it looks like. So you are awesome, lady. You go for it. Tell those neighbors I said hi.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I will.
Okay.
Okay, so what else do we have? Kathy?
I thought of a couple more things.
So go ahead. Sorry, Julia.
I just thought of a couple more things that have been racing through my mind, and I thought I'd say them while I can think of it. Maybe we're humans are the exotic animals.
Oh,
Release them.
Except
that's
for
just our.
The vision that I got when she said that was a turtle, was an ancient turtle.
Oh, that's the symbol for Earth.
Yes,
Yeah,
turtle. Yeah, Turtle Nation.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what we
Maybe
know.
yeah. Well, that's an idea anyway. And then I was just wondering if you've been following the work of Nassim Haramein, who talks about the 64 grid tetrahedron grid. That's his big thing. He's got wonderful stuff about that. And I don't know if we've talked, but I don't remember if you've ever seen his videos that are actually quite amazing, just about the 64 grid thing.
Yeah, not about the 64 tetrahedron, but I have seen some of his work, and yeah, he is really amazing. But the 64 tetrahedron geometry is said to be like the perfect geometry because it contains within it all the other sacred geometries.
Right. And that's what he came to, that idea too. He explains it in depth about his, and with the pictures of it and how he came to that conclusion as well. And then I just wondered if you or anybody has seen the movie The Last Mimsy, which is an old kids movie, but it's just wonderful. It's got the new humans who can float things around, and it's got this, at the end there's this wonderful geometry that the kids come up with that's just etheric, a lot like your drawings actually.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It encompasses the story that we're unfolding right now about our awakening, and it covers a lot of bases. It's a good one. Okay, that's all. I'll stop.
Thanks.
I love you. I love you so much. I miss you. I wish we could talk for 5 hours.
You can. Well, you can call me.
Okay, what else do we have? Any other questions?
Well, I wanted to share what's coming up next, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
So the next meeting that we have is coming up on February
9th.
9th. Thank you. Oh, here it is. And it's with David Adair. And I don't know if any of you have seen David Adair's interview on Dr. Michael Sala's Exopolitics YouTube channel. He also was on Broadcast Team Alpha with some of my friends. It's quite amazing, his stories. He basically he has a alien being inside of him. So
Wow.
it'll be quite interesting to hear about it. And we'll be sending this out and setting it up on the website coming up very soon. But wanted to know, have you put this on your calendar and protect the time if you would? Because it is going to sell out our capacity on Zoom, and it's going to be worth changing your plans if you've got plans for that day.
David Adair, it's very recognizable, very bright person. When you listen, when you go on exopolitics.com or you go to Dr. Michael Sala, a YouTube channel or anything in between, you're gonna see those interviews there, and they are just amazing. That's all I can say. I don't usually. It takes a lot for me to be impressed, and this guy really impresses me because he's a brilliant, have a brilliant mind. Always had a brilliant mind, and those minds are here for a reason, and he have an awesome message. So just FYI, it's very inspirational what he does, what he did. It's I said to myself, geez, let's say if I was 15 years old and I'm listening and I'm comparing myself. Mr. Lockley, do you know where you were when you were 15? Okay. Do you know where you were when you were 17? Okay. And it compares nothing where he was, what he was doing while he was 15 or 17 or 19. I said, what? I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, oh, you got to be joking me. So just the consciousness, that's the key. The consciousness that he came with, his soul came with this embodied consciousness, which is just amazing. That's all I can say. So it will be there on our website and soon. And yeah, just make a note and share it with your friend.
Yes.
So.
And his talks Beyond Earthly Bounds, Exploring Exopolitics and Extraterrestrial Realities. So I think it's going to be just remarkable what we can learn, and very hopeful. I think it, hopefully.
He has really good insight into the future as well.
Yes. So thank you all for coming. Please, we're trying to grow everything.
One last, I guess so. My last question or last ask from Cynthia. Insight into the future, as Gar had said. What will be the insight into the future, into future of humanities, as you can kind of could share to the whole humanity, that we can inspire to, and leave us as a parting words.
Okay. Well, we're going to see a lot of flooding. We're going to see fires, and we're going to see a lot of wind. We're going to see a lot of extremes. And in the course of all of that, we need to stay grounded in ourselves and stay in our heart centers. And like that pendulum that I was talking about that spins to the right or spins in whatever direction we don't want it to spin in. We need to really hold our focus and realize that it's like where the two or more gathered painting that I did, that example, is that we just need to gather ourselves together and despite what is going to happen around us, and there's going to be a lot of extreme things. There's going to be a lot of extreme things. We have to hold our center, and we have to, realize that we this life is not everything, right? I mean, we come down into these lives, and then we'll go into the next life, and we've had a life before. And just do the best you can. Just try to stay in the most positive, loving, calm, grounded space that you can in the times to come, because it's going to get harder. And try to find your people to do that with. That's
Find our tribe. Know your
Right.
tribe. Know who you resonate with. And know what your heart center is and who you resonate on the heart level. It's impressive. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you guys all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
Thank you for the wise
everyone.
message.
Wonderful.
Thanks. All right.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everybody.
It was really
Thanks.
great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bless you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Bye.
Uh,